Hi guys, I'm Dr. Tara Tobias. I want to welcome you all back to this channel. In today's home exercise tutorial, we are doing part 2 in a series that I started last week on circumduction. As I mentioned last week, the video was really long, so there was kind of like a hard cut at the end of last week's video, and then I'm basically just going to start where I cut off last week. So if you haven't watched last week's video, I would stop this video and go back and watch that video first, because this one's really not going to make a whole lot of sense unless you watch that video first. But as I mentioned in last week's video, in this week's video, I'm going to finish up going over some solutions to the problems that I started talking about in last week's video, including ways or strategies to decrease the amount of circumduction or hopefully eliminate circumduction altogether. Last week I went over how to relearn how to bend the leg if you have a stiff leg and why that's so important. And then this week we're going to go over strategies for relearning how to bend the leg and bring the leg forward, as well as a little bit more of an in-depth explanation on bracing, which I started to talk a little bit about last week, but that can also be a reason that you might be circumducting. So again, if you haven't watched last week's video, I highly recommend you watch that video first. But before we dive into this week's video, if you're new to my channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload new videos. And now let's go ahead and head on into the video. Now, if you're someone that's unable to lift your foot, the most common reason for this are for those of you that either no one's told you you need a brace or you are choosing not to use a brace. So this is pretty common, probably more so with multiple sclerosis than it is with MS. I get it. It's kind of a progressive disorder, and what I hear from a lot of people is that's just kind of giving into the disease. I've heard that a lot, that if I go to a brace, that's giving into the disease. Or those of you that have had a stroke, that you don't want to look disabled, so you won't wear a brace. But those are the most common reasons I hear for someone that has a floppy foot that chooses not to wear a brace. If you choose not to wear a brace and your foot is floppy, most likely you're going to swing your leg around the side. And getting into that habit, it's really not a good habit to have. That's why I'm making this video. It can create back pain. You're gonna be putting more stress on your other leg. So I've seen this for people that are 15, 20 years down the road, starting to get arthritic changes in the opposite leg, all because that foot is left to just be floppy, when the solution to that is just to put a brace on. Now, braces have come a long way, so this is not a bracing video, but there are braces that do a really good job. They're extremely low profile, so very minimalist. So I highly recommend talk to your physical therapist, talk to an orthotist and your doctor, and just be open to the idea of maybe having a brace. It's not really black and white. It's not like either you're always gonna wear the brace or you don't wear a brace. Maybe you get a brace and you just wear it for longer distances so that you're not reinforcing that compensatory strategy for an entire day where you're going to be walking around Disney. So just because you get a brace does not necessarily mean you need to wear it all the time. It's just a tool in your bag of tricks to help you with those days where you don't want to reinforce that bad habit over a prolonged period of time. The other thing I see is that people choose to use a foot drop strap versus a brace. Most foot drop straps, after the first month, the material just stretches out, and even though you think it's helping you because you strap it in and you click it in place and you feel like it's lifting that foot up, when you actually go to walk, if your foot's really floppy, most of the time those braces stretch out a little bit and it's really not actually lifting your foot. So you may be swinging your leg around to the side because you have a foot drop strap when really you should be in something a little bit more rigid, like a low profile brace. So I'll put links in the description below if you don't want to go the orthotist route for some very minimal, low profile braces that are fairly cheap that you can buy on Amazon, just to give it a try, to feel like Is this what's causing you to swing your leg around the side? And if so, does it feel better in this kind of brace? And if so, maybe down the road you can be thinking, okay, this is a potential option to go get a custom brace that is designed and molded specifically to my leg. You can start with a $20, $30 brace that you can buy on Amazon. So I'll put links for a couple of the ones that I think are good, that are considered like off the shelf or prefabricated. A custom brace is always the better way to go. They mold your leg so it is fit to your leg. So I always recommend that route. But again, if you want to start with something, just do a little experiment on your own. I'll put links for those in the description below. So now the next thing I talked about was a poorly fitting brace. And I really talked about that earlier. But if you're in a foot drop brace or an off the shelf brace, like I just talked about just a second ago, and maybe you have spasticity and you should be in a custom brace, that could be another reason you're swinging your leg around the side. So if you have spasticity and you know that, meaning your foot points involuntarily, a foot drop brace is not going to work. A foot drop brace literally stops the foot from flopping down. Spasticity, there is force behind that pointing down. And what happens because of that force, what happens is your foot just points out of the brace. So your foot points down and the brace just falls off. Now, a brace that's designed for spasticity, it is ready for that because there are straps that go right over the top of the ankle that prevent that from happening. That's number one of a poorly fitting brace. If you're in a foot drop brace, and you should be in a brace for spasticity, your foot is pointing out of that brace, I can guarantee you, which is making that leg longer and making it impossible for you to bring that leg straight through. Therefore, you will swing it around the side. Now, in the same category is if your foot is in a brace that is set pointed because you have a contracture, and I've talked about this in a few videos just for those of you that haven't seen those videos, you'll know because there'll be a little foam wedge glued to the bottom of your brace. If they didn't build up your other shoe or raise your other foot that same amount, you're gonna swing your leg around the side because now that leg is longer because that foot is pointed because you have a contracture in the muscles that point the foot, and no one accommodated for that in the other shoe. That would be another reason you will swing the leg around the side because now that leg is longer and there's nothing that you can do to stop that. Even if you have good knee bend, in my experience, our brains are pretty smart. It kind of already knows that leg is a little bit longer and it'll just automatically resort to swinging that leg around the side versus bringing that leg straight through. And then the last one is if you do not have good connection with the muscles that lift the leg and bend the knee. Now, those muscles need to coordinate together. So the muscles that bring the leg forward and the muscles that bend the knee need to work together. And if they aren't working together, either the leg's going to come forward before the knee bends, or the knees can bend, but you don't have the strength to bring the leg forward. You might swing your leg around the side. So what's the solution to this? Start laying down. I always start with mat exercises, then sitting, then standing. It's always going to be easier to work on lifting the hip up before you work on bending the knee. So work on lifting the hip up with the knee bent. The easiest way to do that is lying on your side. So that is gravity eliminated. I've talked about that in some of my other videos. Anything where you're moving parallel to the ground is gravity eliminated. And that is always the easiest position to start in when learning a new movement. And then switching to against gravity, which is going away from the ground. So then you would lay on your back and just bring that knee into your chest. I also like just putting a gym ball under your leg. Now, the important thing here is not to let the leg flop out to the side. So that is that circumduction. If your leg is rolling off the ball out to the side, really work on keeping that leg straight to break that habit of swinging your leg around the side. You can see this is very similar to walking, and you're just gonna think about bringing that knee up to your chest. So now we're gonna move to sitting. The two exercises I like to relearn how to bring that leg forward and bend that knee at the same time. One is using this Core Max. I love this Core Max. This is kind of like an active assisted exercise. I will put a link for the Core Max in the description below, but you're just going to be sitting, you're going to push down. This would actually work for anyone with spasticity as well. You're going to try and push down and then let that leg come back up. Now, the nice thing about this Core Max is you can set different resistances. So you can start with a lot of assistance, which in this case would be resistance because it's meant to be pushed down. So you can start with it on like super hard, which is going to give you the most help coming up, and then kind of back off from there. But you're going to start sitting and doing that, just working on letting the Core Max just bring your leg up. Dropping the resistance down means that it's like active assistive, meaning that you're doing part of the work and the Core Max is doing part of the work. The reason this also works for the spasticity in the quadriceps, remember what I said, when you push down, which is actually standing on that leg, which is what you do right before you swing that leg through, you're contracting all those muscles, and it's more challenging once you've already contracted those muscles to relax them. So the Core Max in this position will teach you how to go from a contracted position to a relaxed position. So that's why I like that one. And now standing, I would progress this right to standing if you can. I like a wall on one side for balance, use a countertop, use something to make sure you're safe. Remember, these exercises that I show in these videos, you do at your own risk. These are general recommendations. They should not replace face-to-face treatment from a healthcare professional. So you do these at your own risk. So hold on to something if you feel you need to, but then you can transition that right into standing. So you can push down on it and then allow that Core Max to help you active assist to bring that leg up. So remember, this exercise is for those of you that don't have spasticity, but you just have poor connection with the muscles that bring the leg forward. That's the one I would recommend. And then the last exercise in this group of exercises for those of you that have poor connection with the muscles that bring the leg forward are what I call like eccentrics. In the muscle world, that means that you contract the muscle and you let it slowly come down. That's going to be easier. What you're going to do is you are going to help the leg up onto a block, stand up. Don't help the leg up on the block once you're standing. Do it while you're sitting. Stand up using your uninvolved leg. And then once you're standing, work on stepping off the block. You already have the leg flexed. You're going to work on stepping off the block, trying to go as slow as possible. Now, I'm showing it here with a step. I also like a yoga block because if you don't clear the edge of the yoga block, it'll tip over. So you'll know that you didn't really have full control of your hip and knee muscles. The goal would be, if you were using something light like a yoga block, that you could do it without tipping it over. That means you're lifting the leg to get it off the block. But the goal is to really assist it up into that flexed position or already elevated position, and then work on going slow off. If it's just falling off, then those muscles aren't really learning that movement. So really focus on just slowing it down and making sure you can control it on the way down. And then you know that those muscles are relearning how to lift the leg up. And then eventually, if you wanted to progress this before you actually got to walking, work on stepping up onto a step, maybe a 2-inch step, then a 4-inch step, then a 6-inch step, then an 8-inch step, really working on lifting that leg and bending that knee at the same time. That is the critical component. Some people can bring the leg forward, some people can bend the knee, but to do them together is the only way to prevent you from subconsciously wanting to swing that leg around the side. So I hope this video was helpful for those of you that asked for a video on circumduction. There were a few of you. If you have any questions after watching this, leave them in the comments below. Man, you guys are getting so good with your questions that it's pretty much dictating exactly what the next video is going to be on. So keep leaving your questions. I love, love, love your questions. Keep leaving your inspiring stories. I promise you, you are making a difference in someone else's life and giving them the encouragement they need by just sharing your story or how your rehab is progressing. That will really help people that are maybe in the early stages of this. If you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload new videos. Give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me to know what types of videos the majority of you are interested in. Obviously, if a video gets a lot of likes, it's gonna kind of get my mind spinning to make another video with more exercises in that area. So if any of this resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.